look at this U-turn that they've just magically come up with out of nowhere. And what really infuriates me, what really, frankly, angers me, is the fact that there's no acknowledgement of the generations who've gone without and who've been poorer because of their decision to take this seriously. No acknowledgement of the damage this rule caused in people's lives, and certainly no apology. Hello there, I'm Lloyd Evans. Welcome to the Attic. In today's video, we need to talk about some incredible developments for Jehovah's Witnesses. Recently, we've seen change after change after change, and the latest breakthrough that Jehovah's faithful and discreet slave have made is some new light that means that Jehovah's Witnesses now have permission to go to college or university. So I'm making this video on August 22nd. It was literally today when the video dropped on jw.org, Governing Body Update number 5 for 2025. It's hosted by David Splain, and it makes this adjustment or clarification that Jehovah's Witnesses can now essentially choose for themselves whether they can go through additional education, as they're referring to it now. And what's interesting is they've been making so many changes. I actually made a video back in January 2024 predicting 10 changes to look out for in the near future. And what's interesting is we've already seen 2 of them. So just as a recap, here are 2 of the 10 changes I told you to look out for in January of 2024. I can see them relaxing on their dress and grooming requirements for women when it comes to Kingdom Hall meetings, because as things stand, if you're a Jehovah's Witness woman, you are not allowed to wear pants to the meeting, even if it's like formal kind of business attire.
The governing body has decided that sisters may choose to wear slacks when participating in the ministry and when attending Christian meetings, assemblies, and conventions.
Change number 7, higher education. This would be another big U-turn, bigger than beards, bigger than birthdays, because look how much material they've published regarding the shaming of young people who pursue higher education.
Is it appropriate for Christians to pursue additional education? With this update, we'd like to clarify our understanding. While there are dangers involved in pursuing certain forms of education, basically, whether to obtain additional education or not is a matter for personal decision.
This is huge. If you've never been one of Jehovah's Witnesses, I can understand why you're perplexed that this would even be a thing. But for those of us who've grown up as Jehovah's Witnesses, there will be a great deal of resentment about this, especially those of us who went without, who turned their backs on opportunities to go to college and university and ended up poorer as a result, or with fewer opportunities to be successful and to look after themselves. You know, those of us whose futures have been shaped by what was written previously in the publications and by the repeated pressure to turn our backs on higher education will be rightly apoplectic that it's taken them this long to give Jehovah's Witnesses the freedom to make this personal decision for themselves. Now, the entire video is 18 minutes long, and what I've done is I've boiled it down to 3 minutes of clips of David explaining, or as I like to put it, Dave-splaining this new clarification to us.
While there are dangers involved in pursuing certain forms of education, basically, whether to obtain additional education or not is a matter for personal decision. At Galatians 6:5, the Bible says, "For each one will carry his own load of responsibility." So, each adult must make his or her own decision on whether to obtain additional education. Each adult Christian, and in the case of minor children, each family head, should prayerfully consider Bible principles and the unique factors involved with a certain educational program before making the decision. No Christian, including the elders, should judge a fellow Christian's personal decision on this matter. Nothing, I'm going to repeat this, nothing should be more important to us than serving Jehovah. So view any additional education as a way to help you support yourself while you focus your life on serving God wholeheartedly. Think about the time it will require. Will you still have time for your spiritual routine and family obligations? Could your secular studies leave you so mentally exhausted that you have no energy left for meeting preparation or personal study? What about the length? How many months or years will it take to complete?
I'm going to cut in here because we can already see that even though Jehovah's Witnesses now have freedom to choose whether they go to college or not, it's coming with a string of caveats, isn't it? There is as well something that David Splain says about elders, and we're going to come back to that because that was an interesting little comment that he made about nobody interfering, including elders.
No Christian, including the elders, should judge a fellow Christian's personal decision on this matter.
That's interesting for reasons I will return to. But again, whole bunch of caveats here. We're already learning that nothing should be more important in a Jehovah's Witness's life than serving Jehovah. So if you do go to college or university, your priority should always be serving Jehovah. That should remain unchanged throughout the duration of your time in additional education. We're also learning that Jehovah's Witnesses should be thinking about how many months or years it may take them to complete the course. And typically, courses in college and university do take years to complete. So there are some strings attached, it seems. It's not as simple as just telling Jehovah's Witnesses, look, you get to go off and make your own decisions now. They do still have a basis for fretting over what type of course they commit to, and above all else, they always need to keep their focus on their faith over their education.
Be aware that moving away from your family poses a serious spiritual danger, especially if you'll be living with relatives or others who don't share your beliefs. Ask yourself, what plan do I have in place to stay regular in my meeting attendance, ministry, and personal study? View yourself as a servant of Jehovah first, and a student second. Another important safeguard is to protect your thinking abilities. Some courses might expose you to philosophy and empty deception, including atheism and evolution. A final factor that will help you to remain spiritually strong is to choose your associates wisely. If you decide to get additional education, your fellow students might try to include you in their social life. However, you need to be cautious. Although you share a classroom with your fellow students, you don't share their values. And the more time you spend with them, the more their thinking can affect you. Be alert to any warning signs and act quickly. Don't let your education keep you from giving priority to Jehovah's service.
So again, the priority is very much on caution, on being aware of the dangers. They are terrified of Jehovah's Witnesses being exposed to bad association, to being in a situation where they have friends who do not share their faith, who could potentially lead them astray. And they even specify philosophy, evolution, atheism as things that certain courses could expose them to that could lead them away from their faith, which I guess is a justifiable concern for the governing body and always has been. In fact, you could argue that going all the way back to Charles Taze Russell, who founded the Watchtower, the main focus on dissuading higher education has been because they are terrified of exposing the beliefs of the organization to criticism by academics. That's always been the concern. Because when you go through higher education, the more education you receive, the more you understand, logic and critical thinking, the more susceptible you are to waking up and realizing that you've been brought up believing a bunch of hogwash. That's always been the concern. But for whatever reason, the governing body are now relaxing their rules. Why they're doing it, we can only speculate. I would suggest it could be about money, because the organization is very dependent upon donations from members. If ordinary Jehovah's Witnesses, the rank and file, aren't sufficiently educated, it will impact on what their employment opportunities are, and the fewer their employment opportunities, the less money they have, and the less money they have, the less money can find its way to the organization. So I believe, it's a hunch, I don't know, maybe one day we will know, but I can't help but wonder whether this is all about protecting Watchtower's bank balance and making sure publishers have enough money to be sending to the organization. But it's difficult to overstate just how big of a U-turn this is. This goes against decades of instructions to young Jehovah's Witnesses, again going all the way back to Charles Taze Russell. There were slides in the photo drama of creation dissuading early Bible students from going through university, from exposing themselves to higher critics and to people who believed in evolution and who might corrupt their belief. And I could cite so many quotes from the literature over the years. My favorite one, because I need to keep this as brief as possible, if I had to choose one quote from the magazines over the decades that just perfectly sums up how big of a deal this U-turn is, it has to be the May 22nd, 1969 Awake. The notorious 1969 Awake, which said, if you are a young person, you also need to face the fact that you will never grow old in this present system of things. Why not? Because all the evidence in the fulfillment of Bible prophecy indicates that this corrupt system is due to end in a few years. This was 1969, by the way. Of the generation that observed the beginning of the last days in 1914, Jesus foretold, this generation will by no means pass away until all these things occur. Therefore, as a young person, you will never fulfill any career that this system offers. if you are in high school and thinking about a college education, it means at least 4, perhaps even 6 or 8 more years to graduate into a specialized career. But where will this system of things be by that time? It will be well on the way towards its finish, if not actually gone. 1969, they were telling young Jehovah's Witnesses, you're not even going to have time to finish a college or university course, because that's how soon Armageddon's going to come. This was the faithful slave. This was Jehovah's channel. This was Jehovah's wisdom back then. And since then, we've just had article after article. We've had the Young People Ask book. Again, my generation and earlier generations and subsequent generations, we have had our futures and our lives shaped by this. And we are poorer because of this. And just to emphasize how big of a U-turn this is, because this would make a bit more sense if they'd just gone quiet about it over the last few years. But as we all know, even in the JW Broadcasting era, they have been producing video after video, talk after talk, dramatization after dramatization, again, dissuading young Jehovah's Witnesses from pursuing higher education. I decided I couldn't do this video justice without showing you at least some clips. So what I'm going to show you is a series, like a best-of selection of some of the footage they've been pumping out into young people's minds just since 2015, which was when they first started talking about it on JW Broadcasting.
It is one thing to work on a job with others and quite another matter to immerse oneself in an institution of learning. We are to be careful that this system does not mold or shape our thinking. The verse said to make over your minds, not hand over your minds. Higher learning can easily influence thinking and attitudes. I have long said, the better the university, the greater the danger. The most intelligent and eloquent professors will be trying to reshape the thinking of your child, and their influence can be tremendous.
Personally, I am so thankful to Jehovah that positive peer pressure was put on me to enter the pioneer ministry right out of high school. What a blessing and a protection it was to enter the regular pioneer work at age 17 and to be able to go to Bethel at 18. Even though there was considerable worldly pressure put on me to pursue university education, I am so happy that with Jehovah's help, I decided to build my future with Jehovah.
Many young people have left behind opportunities for higher education. They've stepped out of the boat and walked on water. They left behind so-called security and safety, and they put their lives in Jehovah's hands. Even though they've chosen to give up some comforts of life to serve in remote areas, they are happy and live fulfilling lives.
What's a fourth means by which Satan attempts to fashion us, reshaping our thinking? Higher education. Most of us remember the January 2015 JW Broadcasting program hosted by Brother Morris of the governing body. He focused on the value of divine education, but he also reaffirmed the dangers of pursuing higher secular education. Its whole purpose is for learning, influencing one's thinking. And while a person's intention might be just to create a stable base for a secular future, his decision could expose him to unscriptural ideas and practices.
Many of us have made major decisions, made major changes in our lives in order to become disciples of Christ. Perhaps we left promising careers. Perhaps we left fame. Perhaps we gave up higher education, or whatever it may be. You see, we've made these decisions. We may have walked away from many things in the world, but by putting faith in Christ Jesus, what amazing blessings have come to us. Just like Jesus said, 100 times more than what we have given up.
I faced the decision of what to do with my life after school. Many around me just assumed I'd go off to college and pursue a career. However, for my study of the Bible, I knew I had another choice to make: to serve Jehovah. This was a big decision for me. At times, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was inexperienced and unsure about whose advice to take, the Bible's or that of well-meaning family and friends.
An 18-year-old brother was trying to decide what he wanted to do after high school. He was raised in the truth, and in his heart, he wanted to be a pioneer. But he also had a scholarship to go to university and some other grants, and he had been accepted to attend. He had many questions. How was he going to support himself? And much pressure from his teachers and counselors to go to university. Well, that was me some years ago. I'm so glad that with the help of Jehovah and my parents and other mature friends in the congregation, I made the decision, just like so many other brothers and sisters around the world, to turn down that scholarship, to give up university, and go directly into the full-time service.
Often also, a lot of exposure to ungodly conduct in the case of ones who pursue higher education in Satan's world. Now, it's true, not all who pursue higher education in Satan's world experience those pitfalls. But is it a risk worth taking? That's what we want to get our young ones to think about. I like to use the illustration of a school of hungry sharks. Now, let's say the statistics are that if 10 people try to swim through this school of hungry sharks, 8 of them will make it. Only 2 will be eaten by the sharks. Now, would you reason, well, that's very good survival rate, 80% survival. I think I can do it. I think I could swim through this school of sharks. You probably wouldn't take that risk, would you? Well, what's the point? Well, for those who try to swim through and survive spiritually, the figurative school of hungry sharks of higher education, probably the survival rate is not as good as in our illustration.
They were constantly putting pressure on me to go for higher education and to go to university. Of course, when I chose to go to that school, higher education wasn't the reason. I wanted to fast-track getting a trade and then starting a job so that I could earn my income. That's what I thought. It was a really difficult time for me. I remember praying to Jehovah in tears for hours. What helped me the most was something I heard at a circuit assembly. The speaker said in his talk, "Yes, our young people have a lot of challenges right now. And when it comes to higher education, maybe their classmates and teachers are pressuring them. But you young people," it felt like he spoke to me personally. "Your teacher or classmate might not even be part of your life in the future. But if you want Jehovah always to be in your life, then you need to make your decisions according."
I was offered after high school the opportunity to attend a prestigious university for no cost. But Jehovah invites you to rely on Him, not to rely on yourself. I decided to find a part-time job that provided the means necessary to pay for things like food and clothing, but really it was going to provide me with an opportunity to focus on that service to Jehovah.
In the country where I grew up, a common goal was to go to university, to get a good job, and look after your parents. It was a difficult dilemma. During that time, we had an assembly, and one of the speakers highlighted Ephesians 3 verse 20, which shows that Jehovah will give us much more than what we need if we put kingdom interests first. That really touched my heart, and from that moment, I decided to enter the full-time service. and not to go to university.
It's just incredible, isn't it? Right up until 2025, right up until this year's convention, they've been dissuading higher education. And bear in mind, we're still in August. We're still in convention season. There are Jehovah's Witnesses still going to their conventions, watching that last clip where the young man describes how brilliant it is that he dodged the bullet of going through higher education and how he was better off for it. That's how much of a U-turn this is. There are still people who are going to be going to the convention and watching that testimonial. Unless they pull it, maybe they'll pull it, I don't know. But they've been banging this drum so loudly to the point where governing body members have been saying, look, I went without higher education, you should too. And this has been the thinking that they've been pumping into the minds of young people, which again has just been sabotaging their opportunities to find success and find financial stability. It's never been about prominence and about just this race to have a debauched life and to just be materialistic. It's always been, in my opinion at least, about bettering yourself, about becoming more knowledgeable, more literate, and more able to provide for yourself. And now, finally, magically, Jehovah's Witnesses have permission. They've now got the freedom to make the decision for themselves. And now I need to take you back to what David Splain said specifically about elders.
No Christian, including the elders, should judge a fellow Christian's personal decision on this matter.
No Christian, including the elders, should judge a fellow Christian's decision on the matter. That's interesting. That's interesting. Because elders have been judging themselves on this matter for years. It's actually in their Shepherd the Flock of God book that an elder's qualifications can be called into question. They can be deleted as elders. If you don't know what an elder is, maybe not everyone will, someone in authority in the congregation, you can be removed from your position as an elder in a Jehovah's Witness congregation if your children go through college or university, or at least that's been the case right up until today, August 22nd, and they were so fastidious about this rule that they even produced a training video that got leaked. I never got round to doing a rebuttal to it, but I thought now would be the perfect time to revisit it. Let's just take a look at a compilation of clips from a dramatization. Again, this is leaked. This is not supposed to be seen by ordinary Jehovah's Witnesses. Let's just see how such an elder was supposed to be treated for making this personal decision.
I asked you, brothers, to review his qualifications as an elder. After we spoke, and Brother Brown had an opportunity to explain to me some of the decisions that he's made for his family. I'm aware that you brothers have considered this matter before, but since then, another one of Brother Brown's daughters have enrolled in a school for higher education, which raises questions as to how this affects the congregation.
As far as my younger daughter is concerned, she was judicially reproved, but it wasn't announced to the congregation, so she's repentant. And no one has approached me expressing that they're disturbed about me supporting my daughters seeking higher education, trying to better themselves. It's not like they're leaving the truth.
They understand that it's a personal decision and that's something that you have to decide, but it still doesn't mean that your freeness of speech is not affected. In fact, the freeness of speech of the entire body of elders, as well as how successful we are as shepherds, has been affected as well.
Now, brothers, please open your shepherd book to chapter 8. You'll notice paragraph 30 discusses when a member of an appointed man's household pursues higher education, and paragraph 32, which outlines the procedure for reviewing the qualifications of such a man.
The same paragraph says, if an appointed brother's children pursue higher education, does his life pattern show that he puts kingdom interests first in his life? I don't think any of us can honestly say that Brother Brown's family is viewed as putting kingdom interests first in their life.
He's been belligerent, he's accused us of overstepping, and he keeps insisting that this is a personal family decision. He never took into consideration the feelings of the congregation.
After prayerfully weighing all of the facts and considering the scriptures, the body of elders unanimously decided to recommend your deletion as an elder, and I agree with them. The brothers will now explain to you the reasons why we reached this decision.
Brother Brown, as you know, 1 Timothy 3 verses 4 and 5 says that an overseer should be a man presiding over his household in a fine manner, having his children in subjection with all seriousness. The elders unanimously agree that your decision to support and encourage your daughters to pursue higher education has damaged their spirituality.
That's what elders were being told, right up until recently. I can't give you an exact date. I'm assuming this was 2023. If it wasn't 2023, it was maybe a little bit earlier than that. But that's the extent to which this rule was enforced. And doesn't this show how man-made this whole process is? This is an organization that wants you to believe it is directed by God. It is Jehovah's channel with mankind. And yet, look at this U-turn that they've just magically come up with out of nowhere. And what really infuriates me, what really, frankly, angers me, is the fact that there's no acknowledgement of the generations who've gone without and who've been poorer because of their decision to take this seriously. No acknowledgement of the damage this rule caused in people's lives, and certainly no apology. And yet these are supposed to be humble men who we're supposed to admire and respect. This is supposed to be the cream of the crop of humanity that Jehovah has chosen to represent him. And they make this sort of change, the correct change, by the way. This should have been done years ago. But if you're going to make the change, at least acknowledge that you screwed up. At least offer some kind of apology for the damage that was done to previous generations. That's nowhere to be seen in this governing body update. And I think, speaking at least for my generation, or speaking for myself, that's what's causing anger here. I'm glad, I'm genuinely thrilled that future generations of Jehovah's Witness youths, those brought up in Jehovah's Witness families, will not have to go through what myself and others from my generation had to go through. That's fantastic. That's positive. This is progress. But where's the humility here? Where is the accountability for the damage that this organization has done to so many people over so many decades? Anyway, so much to process. I'm sure I'll have more to say on this subject in the future, but this is an incredible development, and I just felt the need to drop everything and share this with you all. Again, what more proof do you need that there is no divine direction going on here? This is an organization that's making it up as it goes along, that is damaging people's lives, and when they do make improvements, there is no accountability. I hope you found this video interesting. Don't forget that if you enjoyed this video, you can subscribe for more such videos. But that's about everything I have to share with you at this moment. Thank you so much for watching.